Welcome to the Becoming a Pilot podcast, where we share first-hand experiences, practical advice, and insights from pilots at every stage of their journey. I'm your host, Dave Angus, and whether you're just starting out or working towards your next rating, we're here to help you navigate the path to becoming a pilot. So buckle up, stay tuned, and let's talk all things aviation.
This podcast is brought to you by Genesis Flight College, Canada's premier flight center. With an advanced fleet of Diamond aircraft and experienced instructors, Genesis Flight College provides top-tier training in the heart of southern Georgian Bay. Ready to start your journey to becoming a pilot? Inquire today.
Welcome back to the Becoming a Pilot podcast. My name is Dave, a flight instructor here at Genesis Flight College, and once again joined by
Tyler, as also a flight instructor at Genesis.
And today we're going to talk about how to give a proper weather brief and how we kind of force our students or push our students. I shouldn't use the word force, but push our students to do flight briefs right from day one. So Tyler, you get a new student that comes in school. It doesn't matter, ATPL student, like a cadet student or a modular student. What are you doing lesson number one with them to start that snowball of how to do a proper weather brief?
Yeah, so on day one, we'll show them the website that we use for our weather brief. It's kind of complex and overwhelming at first to see all that information displayed, so we'll just pick apart a METAR. Start with something a little more simple until they get into the ground school where they can actually decode METARs and TAFs. But we'll show them the WX brief website, which incorporates the GFAs and our TAFs and METARs for the surrounding area. And incorporate into every flight is a yellow check sheet. So they need to already have had experience decoding weather so that they can give us a weather brief before each flight. But we build them up to the point where they're capable of interpreting that information and then giving us kind of a go, no-go decision there.
Right. I think that like kind of my philosophy on it was always like, just like start day one with, weather, like basic weather, winds, right?
Winds.
So they normally go like, why do the winds matter? Oh, it's probably like turbulence, right? And no, well, it's because we want to take off into the wind. So which way are we going to take off? Right. Because you remember, I don't know when the last time you did that first lesson was, but remember we got that slideshow presentation and it's got, the aerodrome chart, right? So then we see the windsocks and we talk about how, the runways are numbered and talk about the wind anyways. Yeah. And now it's like, okay, well, we need to take off into the wind. So I always say, like, we got our AWOS here, pick up the phone or grab the radio and we call the AWOS, get the winds, right? Gives us a whole bunch of other information. Normally they try to write everything down and I didn't get half that. I listened to it 5 times, but it gets easier and easier. But yeah, you get that basic information, whether it be METAR, TAF, you get through the AWOS, whatever. And we just slowly start picking apart what it all means, right? And at the beginning, it looks a whole bunch of like code and gibberish. Yeah. But then we start putting it together and it starts to make a lot of sense. But I think it's really important that you start from day one, even though it is a little overwhelming. There's a lot of information that comes right at the beginning. But we start right at day one so that, at day or hour 50, when you're getting ready for flight test, it's second nature. You don't even have to think about it, right?
That's right.
I remember going to my PPL flight test and I was like, oh, I got to remember I have to brief, right? I was never really pushed to do that, right? All my exercises I could do them with my eyes closed, but I forgot, I got to remember to weather brief. I got to remember to brief what our flight's going to be, like all these little things that, we really try to push here at Genesis, like right from the beginning, right? So day one, we've learned about the winds, learned about looking at a METAR and a TAF. Should we say that? What is a METAR and a TAF for someone who doesn't know?
Yeah, so the area of an airport will release weather predictions for the specific airport itself and then the environment around the airport. Okay. So within a 5 nautical mile radius for the TAF and then at the actual aerodrome for the METAR.
Yeah, and so the METAR is observed. Yeah, and the TAF is forecast, right? So, yeah, so we got those two different things, and then you were saying another thing, a GFA. What the heck is a GFA?
Yeah, so it's an overall a wide area geographical forecast for a certain section of Canada or wherever you are.
Right. I was just kind of like, I say it's kind of like a radar in the sense where it's like a top-down view.
Yeah.
It's graphical.
Yeah, it's a picture.
But it's going to tell us a little bit more than just where we have areas of precipitation or convective energy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because a radar is just working off reflectivity, right? Mm-hmm. So a GFA is going to show us a little bit more that's important to us for flight planning purposes. I'm not really going to look at a GFA while I'm flying. Right. A radar is a little bit more applicable.
Exactly.
But beforehand, looking at that GFA, and so it's just it's a graphical forecast, right? So it's showing for our area here, so we can start to see through our 3 different GFAs that are issued, where is the weather, where is it going, and how is it changing? Is it getting stronger? Is it getting weaker? Right, so we can really paint a picture. That's all we're trying to do. I always say we're trying to be like almost like investigators, right?
Yeah.
And try to figure out what's happened and what's going to happen, so that we can figure out, like you said, a go no go, right? What's that kind of mean? A go no go? Are we talking about like runway stuff? Are we talking about flying at all?
Yeah, so it depends on the type of flight you're doing. If it's a cross-country flight, then you're going to want to prepare a brief for the airport you're flying to, as well as the airport you're leaving. And then you're going to be coming back to that airport. So how's the weather going to progress throughout the flight? And if it's a local area flight, then the go-no-go decision's based on like current weather and within that hourly time span. Usually flight's around an hour if it's local. So if there's weather pushing in, thunderstorms, which are usually, quite common in the summertime, then you kind of make that go-no-go decision based on, is it going to meet the minima, and is it going to meet the requirements for the exercises that we're performing for this flight?
Yeah, so you say minima there. I don't really care about the specific numbers because it changes based on a lot of different variables, but what even is that?
So you want to have certain ceiling and visibility requirements in order to fly. So uncontrolled and controlled, that differs, but basically you want to have a certain amount of visibility based on the weather forecasts and certain ceiling height in order to fly.
Yeah, I found actually last year was really bad for the smoke. Remember that, like the forest fires when everything was migrating this way. I found that year specifically, it was really interesting to teach about visibility.
Yeah,
because on an average day, you could see forever. Seemingly forever,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And you say, okay, how far is that airport away, or how far is that town away, and whatever. That's kind of a fun game I like to play to try to gauge distances. But that year, we would take off, we'd get to kind of the shoreline, and where you start to see Edenvale Airport, and I'd go, can you see the airport? Oh yeah, I can see the airport. Okay, what's our visibility today? And they're like, wow, 3 miles. Like it is really bad. It's really hazy. And you're like, well, if you can see Edenvale, it's 8 miles away.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's 8 miles.
It is good practice that way.
Yeah,
because
the first time they actually go out and see what 3 mile visibility, the legal limit is, it's actually mind boggling.
Yeah.
Because in 3 miles, like if you saw another airplane, could you, if you're completely converged, could you react in time?
Yeah.
It could be tough.
It would be for sure.
Especially because, let's face it, like you're scanning different things. You're not always looking straight ahead. Maybe you didn't pick them up right at the 3 mile mark.
Yeah.
Maybe you picked it up but didn't quite know what it was. Maybe it looked like a reflection, right? Whatever it may be, that really could make things dangerous for VFR, right?
Right.
We're very fortunate here with our aircraft to have like our TCAS system.
Yeah.
So we can normally pick them out. We had no other traffic well in advance, which is fantastic. Even at the PPL level, I say like anything that gives you more situational awareness is better, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it could be really tough because we do like to push our students' minimums, not outside of their necessarily their personal preferences when it comes to, or personal minimum when it comes to solos. We're obviously not going to do that, but we want to start taking them close to those legal limits to show them what is capable, right? I had no idea because the flight school that I was at before, their minimums were very, very large, right? So it was pretty much had to be clear in $1 million for you to go solo. So I had never really had any experience until getting into my instrument training with low visibility operations, right?
Yeah.
So we were talking, so we use the GFA, we use the AWOS and all of that to do our proper weather brief. I always kind of like to go back to, because of where we are, like we were saying at the beginning, we're kind of in like Narnia, so to speak, between the two METARs and TAFs, where it's its own weather system.
Right.
I always say, like, first, I always pull up like a normal generic weather app. Like I use AccuWeather, right?
Yeah.
I pull that up and it gives me a kind of a general outlook. That's my big picture, right? Yeah. Then I narrow it down a little bit by looking at the GFA, right? What's the GFA saying? Then I narrow it down, METARs and TAFs.
Yep.
Okay. Then finally, I look outside, right? Look
exactly.
out, see what's outside, right?
Like, load up a weather radar and see how the actual clouds are progressing, and satellite imagery as well.
So, right. Satellite, the webcams here, like the Nav Canada cameras.
Yeah, great. A lot of resources that we have for sure.
Tons of resources. And when it comes to the flight test, these are all great things to use, right? Coming in and saying, oh, I used my Apple weather as when I woke up this morning is not a bad idea, right? Yeah. This Apple weather told me it was going to be thunderstorms all day. I looked at then the GFA, and the GFA said that there was no thunderstorms at all. So then I looked at the METARs and TAFs, and they said no thunderstorms. And I looked outside, and it was blue skies. Okay, so then I made my decision that I could fly today, right? Yeah. And we see that happen all the time in the summer here because of the convective potential, right? Those, whatever they use for those Apple weather or whatever, sometimes can pick that up, that high convective potential. So it could also, make our ears perk up in the sense where we know that something could happen. Maybe it's very unstable conditions, right? Something could happen.
Right. And to that point, like, we try to get our students to come to the airport.
Right.
Even if there's a flight book and it doesn't look like the weather's going to go, we could usually sit down and work in some of this stuff, right? So especially beginning stages of flight training, if the student's unaware of why we're canceling a lesson, it's good to have them here regardless so that we can work on decoding all the weather, the weather tools that we have available to us. And then the student will have more confidence in making that decision to give that weather brief, either call it. Obviously, it's up to the instructor to make the final decision, but also you can come in and the weather might not look that good, but it could be doable for a certain lesson depending on where you're at in the stage of training. So, Yeah,
yesterday I almost had a little bit of that in the afternoon. I don't know if you were flying in the afternoon.
Yeah.
There was that big rain cloud that just sat just south of us, right? And it was just pouring south of us, but it was blue skies and everything to the north, right? Yeah. So a day like that, you may have seen that on the radar and been like, you know what, I'm not going to venture in, but it was perfectly fine all day. Exactly. It was a beautiful day.
Yeah. Some students are quick to pull the trigger and cancel the flight. But we always encourage students to come in so we can at least give it a shot if it is doable, because sometimes it clears up quite rapidly, just as quick as stuff rolls in, it kind of moves out too. So
yeah, that's the thing. Like we've said it many times about Collingwood. That's interesting, right? Yeah. It's sure people can go down to Florida and you're gonna have sunny skies and perfect weather every single day of your flight training. But here it adds that complexity. So going back to your weather briefs and going back to the written test, right, which we've talked about on other episodes, how to get ready for your written test. Now you're going to be that much more comfortable with weather because you've got a theoretical knowledge and application of it, and now you've got a practical application and knowledge about the subject, so you can tie it all together. And that kind of fully encompasses all different types of learners, right? For myself, I need to see it, get my hands on it to really know it, where some people can just read it and that's fine.
Right.
But your average person needs to experience it, right?
Yeah.
So all of that stuff, I think, kind of gets you prepped. Your flight test weather brief should be the same as the weather brief you do every day. We get that question a lot, that people just say, what should my weather brief be for my test? Well, the same thing that we talk about every single day, right? And you should get in the habit, whether you're at Genesis, whether you're at another flight school, whether you're a licensed pilot that goes flying on their own.
Yeah.
Every time you fly should be a full weather brief. I personally like the 4-flight weather brief. You go into flights, you hit briefing, gives me a great briefing of all the weather, all the winds, potential icing, and then NOTAMs at the end. But the same thing gets spit out of WX Brief or plan.navcanada.ca.
Right.
But the big takeaway is use all the resources, right? Everything that you have, even if you think it's just some generic weather, that's a good big picture. It gets the ball rolling. It may perk something up in your attention that says, I need to look out for this thunderstorm that might be happening or whatever, right?
Right. Yeah, one thing we did mention was before you even plan a cross country, what would be the first thing you want to look at?
We want to look at NOTAMs.
Exactly. So before you get into the planning of your cross country, you can do all that work and then realize that the runway's closed or, there's something that's limiting you flying in there.
Right.
So yeah, it's always important to check NOTAMs before you start your planning, and then before you leave, double check, and even en route, because something could change and transpire throughout the cross country, right? So
Yeah.
So not only does the weather limit that cross country from happening, but the NOTAMs could as well. So we want to start there, then GFA, then TAFs, METARs, and then make that decision at the end.
Great. That's awesome. Well, thanks so much, Tyler.
Yeah, you're
Appreciate it. And like we say at all the time, at every episode, is if you have any questions or if you want to see or hear us talk about anything in the future, feel free to hit us up on social media. We'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have, whether it even be about something that we talk about or just a general question that you might have about flight training. So thanks a lot. Until next time.
Awesome.
All right.
See
Thanks.
you next time.